You know, if you think that your own short-term pleasure is the most important thing, then yeah, children are not, you know, what's that saying? Parenthood is all joy and no fun. It's hard to think of anything that is more counter to a sort of hedonistic consumerist culture than parenting, because hedonism is all about front-loading the short-term pleasure, even though, you know, we know that pleasure fades quite quickly. Whereas parenting is all about front-loading effort, and particularly in the case of the mother, pain and discomfort and everything, for the sake of a very long-term source of meaning and satisfaction. So it makes sense that parenthood is not really considered to be an essential part of the good life.
The irony of that, of course, is in terms of demographics, most Western cultures are going to face a situation where people who have lived this lifestyle will get to old age and find there isn't the tax base, there aren't the workers, there isn't the infrastructure to keep them in the very comfort to which they've been so addicted.
Yeah.
It's a strange irony that people don't think these things through.
Yeah. This is the subject of my next book, actually. I'm writing a book called The Case for Having Kids, which is sort of about the flip side of this, right? So if the first book was about the effects on sexual culture of the pill severing sex from reproduction, then this is the other side of it. You know, the fact that now that it is so much easier to not have children, because you can have sex without getting pregnant, so many people are choosing to do that. I mean, the cause of plummeting birth rates is a source of great debate, because it's easy to it's quite easy to be parochial about it and say, I mean, like a common thing that I'll hear among my friends in London, for instance, is, oh, it's because house prices are too high, so people can't afford to have children. And it's like, yes, house prices are very high, and it probably is a disincentive for some people. But this is happening everywhere. So only about 3% of the world's population live in a country where the birth rate is not falling. Some countries have much lower birth rates even than us. So South Korea is currently the out in front by some distance. And
the Japanese, the Chinese, the Northern Italians.
Yes.
That's extraordinary. Even Bangladesh has a falling population.
It's amazing, yeah. There seems to be something about modernity that causes this. As soon as countries, and the sort of income threshold is not even necessarily that high. It's not even that you have to be really affluent in order to start on this declining birth rates trajectory. Now, as you say, Bangladesh, places like that, people aren't very rich, but they're already in this second demographic transition. It seems to be something to do with people becoming modern, particularly becoming urbanized, and spending less time. You know, one definition of modernity, which I find very interesting and attractive, is it's essentially defined as spending more time with strangers than with people you're related to. Because in traditional cultures, you spend basically all your time. I mean, hunter-gatherer kind of tribes, you're basically constantly surrounded by your extended kin network. And then as people migrate away from rural areas, live increasingly atomized lives, you know, many people will hardly ever see their families. They'll spend almost all of their time with people they're not related to. And that seems to be very strongly linked with falling birth rates. I mean, we can speculate on the connection there, but it does seem to be a very, very strong one. And yes, as you say, the current, the affluence currently available to modern Westerners, the welfare state pensions, socialised healthcare, all of this, I would be enormously surprised if I ever receive a state pension. Because I think by the time probably in the UK, I would guess probably about the 2040s is when we're likely to see really significant collapsing of these kind of public services, because that's when the baby boomers are going to pass away, and they were the last above replacement generation. But the whole system is a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah. People haven't realised it.
Yeah.
It's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Mind you, they have in Beijing. They're desperately trying everything they can to get the birth rate up, and it's not happening.
Yeah, well, because that's what that's what the Chinese are discovering to their cost. That
What an irony.
It's quite easy to lower birth rates.
Yeah.
The one-child policy was pretty successful, obviously incredibly coercive, but it worked. Whereas trying to move them in the other direction doesn't seem to be possible.
It always seems fascinating to me that I can't see any great concern on the part of feminists. But the other part of the equation there is the massive disappearance of vast numbers of female babies.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some feminists do talk about it, but it's a tricky one because if you're going to be radically pro-choice, I mean, there are lots of arguments that you could make in defence of having some forms of legalised abortion, right? But if you're going to have a complete if you're going to argue for it from a position of radical autonomy, the fetus has no personhood, etc., it's quite hard to square that with them thinking that female fetuses being aborted are having some kind of harm done to them, which is, I think, why that source of dissonance people tend not to look at.
Quite telling, though.